Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale 8th Edition Leadership Summit. You're about to watch panel number 1, Ground Floor, why Broward's development mix is attracting the kind of capital that doesn't leave, and how key stakeholders are capitalizing. And if you enjoyed this panel, subscribe for more. We're bringing you leadership conversations from CEOs from across the country, one city at a time.
The discussion today that we're going to get started off again is why Broward's development mix is attracting the kind of capital that doesn't leave and how stakeholders are capitalizing on that. Broward County is a highly active development market here in the Southeast between Palm Beach on the north and Miami on the south. The story isn't just about volume. It's about the type of capital that's flowing in and the projects that capital is backing, and then most importantly, why it keeps coming back. Out of state and international capital is arriving here in Broward County at scale. We have legislative mandates around live local, other legislation that requires expedited processes for development. But we also have firms and professionals who are doing the work. And those professionals include architects and contractors, builders, all of whom are navigating a market that is simultaneously strong, but also more complicated now than ever. We're joined here today by some of these leaders. I want to introduce you to Austin Fox, who's a principal at Austin Fox Architecture. Jason Martin, Senior Vice President for Moss. And Louis Senra, COO for the A&F Group. Panel, I welcome you. And let's get started with a question for all of you. What is the single most important shift that you've seen in Broward County for the types of projects that are coming forward and the capital that's behind them over the past 12, 18 months? Austin, you want to start off with that?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's an interesting question. As the architect, we get those initial conversations right before it gets into these guys' hands and they build beautiful buildings. So the type of capital and conversations we're having, it's different, right? Because everyone thinks of Miami. And then what happens is Miami gets a bit, a lot of attraction, but Broward's kind of like the little brother that's kind of caught some steam, right? So from our side, on the architecture side, the capital that's coming in, a lot of it's international. I got clients from Dubai, clients from California, New York, Israel, Venezuela, Brazil. It's really interesting to see the money coming in. And as a result, where does the money go, right? So me being in Broward my whole life, seeing the growth, it's quite amazing, I will say. But realistically, what you're seeing is that these pockets of land or pockets of areas that were underdeveloped are getting that injection, right? So these areas that are west of 95, west of the Turnpike are starting to get more attraction. Obviously, we have the beach. The beach is really attractive as well. So you're starting to see these international developers and investors come in and say, where can we maximize our funds in Broward? And they're very bullish on Broward. Broward's really caught an attraction that, a lot of sites that weren't viable a couple of years ago pop back on my desk. So I think what's happening is that you're seeing a lot of things circulate and come back and forth and become a new light, obviously with interest rates and all that good stuff. So it's really interesting to see that shift into the Broward market, which then leads, to construction of these guys. So I think it's very bullish from our clients. And I think we're only seeing the beginning of it. I think you're going to start to see things more go vertical. A lot of things go taller. Because at the end of the day, you can only go west so much of the Everglades and the east of the ocean. So it's you got what you got. You got to work with what you have. So our clients are very, very bullish on the Broward market.
Okay. Jason?
All right. Good morning. First, let me say appreciate the opportunity to be here. Really excited. We're going to have some fun. And shout out to the Moss crew supporting. So from our lens, commercial construction, it's difficult to put things in a 12 to 18-month category because we're typically dealing with projects that range anywhere from 12 to 48 months and anywhere in between. So we typically take a longer horizon on projections, what we think the market, typically 3 to 5 years. And then from a geographical standpoint, we really look at the Tri-County as a whole, as one region. They all work together, they all feed off of each other, and it's hard to get, delineated lines where you really break it apart. So I'll answer the question at a macro, and then I'll dive it into Broward. So we've all heard the headlines, post-COVID, mass migration, wealth transfer to South Florida. It's a lot of really positive attributes that we're the beneficiary of in South Florida. But the bigger part of that we're seeing now is, with the business overall investment that's also transferring to South Florida, you're getting a lot of educated jobs. And with those educated jobs, you're getting families. So we saw the spike in residential construction, call it 3 to 5 years ago. The market was just going crazy. Luxury high-rise condos, apartments, anything and everything was moving. It was all speed to market. Now, that has peaked where the, branded luxury condos in prime locations, ideally water, those are still going to sell. But the multifamily market has geared back significantly. Just the pro formas are not penciling out. It's kind of stuck until we see probably some type of movement on interest rates. So that private side, we're seeing, we're monitoring it. But because of all those educated jobs and family that's come down, you've seen a massive focus on the public side of the construction, specifically within Broward. So, whether it's, expansion on public work, institutional work, we're personally seeing it. We're working on 2 police stations in Broward County right now, wrapping up Hollywood Police in Fort Lauderdale. We're working at Fort Lauderdale for JetBlue's new Terminal 5. Working at the port, doing expansions at the bulkhead for expanded growth at the port itself. So we're seeing, and I'm not going to call it new projects. These projects have always been in discussion, but you're seeing a much more hyper focus on we need to get these projects moving forward because the demand is exceeding what's available. So, these master plans are getting a huge emphasis, and it's exciting to see. So, but to put in high level summary, the capital's here. The capital's searching for where to go. It's just far more selective, and you're seeing that heavy focus now on the public infrastructure side.
Very good. Lewis?
Good morning, everybody. A shout out to A&F as well. I'm super happy to be here. I concur with what Jason said. For us, it's a little different. So we focus on multifamily. And what I've seen is the big shift to a public-private partnership, or P3. A lot of our developers are teaming up with different municipalities, government agencies, and leveraging their land to make these projects, to your point, pencil out. I mean, land costs these days are at an all-time high. Interest rates are as high as they've been in a few years. And really, the only way that these developers are able to move these multifamily projects forward, and I've seen it on the market rate side, I've seen it on the affordable and the workforce housing, is really leveraging that public land and creating those partnerships with the public entities to get these projects moving forward.
All right. You want to give us just a bit more on what those public-private partnerships look like?
Yeah, again, we see it more on the GC side, but we've had a couple of our developers partner with the county on land leases, 99-year leases. So basically, they're getting land at zero acquisition cost. And so, construction cost is really what's determining whether the project pencils and works their perform or not. We've seen deals with Broward College, same thing, multifamily deals, market rate multifamily deals where developers have come in and have partnered with Broward College, again, for their land. So what we're seeing on our side, and we kind of see it as, a tri-county arena as well, similar to what Jason was mentioning. We have developers in Miami that have partnered again with land. So they're just looking for opportunities. The capital's here. They have the capital to invest. They have the capitals to make their projects move forward. But when you start to look at land cost, high interest rates, and the cost of construction, it almost makes it impossible unless they're looking for these partners with public entities.
Sure. And then looking at, again, the South Florida market, give me your thoughts. And again, Jason, I'll go back with you. Is Broward how is it differentiated between the South Florida market, between the West Palm Beach or the Palm Beach County and Miami on the south? Is it Broward being carried by the South Florida market, or does it stand on its own?
So this is an interesting question. If you look at the headlines over the last few years, you're seeing all the publicity around West Palm and what Stephen Ross is doing, Wall Street to the south. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of activity. You know, Class A office space is, you know, off the charts. And then you look at Miami, similar stories, you know, a lot of movement of wealth, a lot of movement of businesses, you know, Ken Griffith building a $1 billion tower in Brickell. So there's a lot of conversation and hype. And I would say from a Broward lens, it's interesting because I would categorize it as mature growth. And when I say that is, you know, the rising tide lifts all boats. So Broward's been benefiting already, but the growth in Broward, I would call it more deliberate. And you look at some of the projects that have turned over in the last year between the convention center, the Omni Hotel, Pier 66, Fat Village, development around the Bright Line. It appears more intentional and it appears more sustainable. So whereas you might see a lot of speculation in West Palm and Miami that certain pockets are they're gonna shoot up and they're gonna fizzle, Broward is built for a much higher runway in terms of overall smart growth. So I'm optimistic about it, and I think you're seeing Broward viewed as its own MSA, not you know, a accessory to Miami-Dade.
Okay. Austin, what do you think?
I'm going to piggyback off of that because you make a good point. A lot of speculation, right? You see West Palm Beach and gets all these crazy headlines. I think so. Broward has the foundation that can piggyback off their momentum, right? West Palm Beach and Miami have their own hype, whatever you want to call it, but Broward actually is where the growth is actually growing, in my opinion. Again, I've been here my whole life. We're starting to see that from our clientele that they come in and they're very, very proactive and bullish on a lot of stuff near the airport. I mean, if you think about it in Fort Lauderdale, where can you stay close by, have great restaurants, you can hop into the airport. I mean, it's really, you think of Las Olas, for example, it's a great hub that's, in my opinion, underrated, that a lot of people are now realizing what Broward has to offer. So, I mean, you could come downtown, grab a nice bite, hop on an airplane, and the access is impeccable. So, and also with the Bright Line. So I think Broward's really taken advantage of that and the capital behind it supporting it. So I'm excited for the future here at Broward, and we're going to see some really great things in the next couple of years.
Okay. All right. And then just looking at our current landscape, since we're focused really now on Broward County in particular. And Austin, you've got some live local projects, 300 units and 156 units simultaneously. You're also working on some luxury condos in Fort Lauderdale and Pompano. Pretty wide range of product types, but as for clients, what are they asking for today in terms of design elements, amenities, user experiences that maybe they weren't asking for 3 or 4 years ago?
Well, aside from the budget to make these guys happy next to me, a lot of the things like amenities are changing over the years, right?
Yeah.
Co-working, COVID changed that a lot. Dog parks, pickleball, these are some of the things that are being implemented in some of our designs. We also want to think of costs, right? Costs are very important because, like he says, these things have to pencil out, and I don't want these guys killing me half the time. So the real goal is to try to find things that are a balance, right, of cost effectiveness and offer things for the people, right? The people that are staying there, those are the actual people we're trying to serve, right? What's the experience for them? How are they going to live in the space? How are they going to, you know, go about their work life? Is it a mixed use building? Is it something where they get their groceries and go back to their apartment, or they go to their, how do they get to their car? Things like this that we think about. So we work with a variety of products, single family, townhomes, and all the, it's really a vast, condos, multifamily. It's really growing, and Broward is able to offer that. So if you look at Broward as a whole, you can get any type of product at any type of level and really have that complementary lifestyle. So for us, we're trying to enhance that and ultimately meet the client's goals and the developer's goals.
Okay. And then, Jason, we know in Broward and South Florida more broadly, luxury condos have been a significant development driver. But from your perspective, how are other categories such as maybe healthcare to in public infrastructure. How are they stacking up overall?
So this is something that we're most excited about. So there's huge capital improvement plans at FLL. Hopefully everyone's seen it. You know, we're out there working again on JetBlue's Terminal 5, massive project, but they've got multi-billion-dollar master plan, probably 5 to 6 huge projects that are going to transform that airport and prepare it for growth for the next 30 years, along with work we're doing at Port Everglades, similar, you know, between the commercial side, the cruise side. You know, they've already had significant growth year over year, and they continue to, and they're preparing that infrastructure to allow that growth. So, you know, 2 huge economic engines in Broward that have significant master plans. They're going to carry, you know, 10, 20 years. So we're excited about that. But then we look at the public side, a lot of public work is coming out, you know, specifically with Broward County and, you know, between transit, between, you know, different individual projects. But probably the one personally that's most exciting is healthcare. So, you know, healthcare is kind of a unique dynamic in South Florida. So in 2019, they had the repeal of the Certificate of Need in the state of Florida. And then they added on to that in 2020 with additional repeals. Really what that did was remove a major constraint on real estate development for healthcare in Florida. So you remove that, COVID comes, you start getting mass migration, mass wealth transfer, you've got an aging demographic that's living longer, needs additional healthcare services. So you've got one of the best dynamics for healthcare growth in South Florida. And then I know Shane's coming up next. We're, you know, looking forward to hearing him speak. It's going to be exciting, you know, but what he's doing at Broward Health, 2 massive MOBs under construction, huge expansion at Memorial. I mean, I think the proof's right there. So healthcare's major sector that's going to continue gaining momentum and continue growing in South Florida that we're excited about.
Okay. And then Louis, also give me your thoughts on that. And I want to sort of tie this together again, because we've talked about P3 projects dealing a lot with public infrastructure. What are your thoughts again on the importance of infrastructure development in a growing economy such as here in Broward?
I mean, again, for us, and similar to what Jason, you know, focusing on several sectors, having those partnerships with you know the owners, developers, is the only way really that these projects are even becoming feasible. So it's super important for the partnerships to play out. As far as infrastructure is concerned, you know, healthcare, you know, the influx of people and just following up with making sure that infrastructure is catching up. So there's going to be a ton of projects on the civil side to assist in that, to say the least. Yeah.
Okay. And then Louis, we know that A&F's volume has consistently stayed around 350 to 400 million annually over a period when a lot of projects have actually slowed or shifted. Talk to us about the operational discipline that makes that possible and what those projects that deliver on the schedules and within budget.
Absolutely. So for us, it's being disciplined and really diversification when it comes down to it. So at A&F, we focus on 4 specific sectors: healthcare, which we just spoke about. That was the core of our foundation, and it still remains one of our core markets. We also focus on institutional, you know, building facilities for government entities, for higher ed, for nonprofits. We focus on senior living. We feel that senior living is a good mix between healthcare, our experience in healthcare, our experience with multifamily. So that's another one of the sectors that we remain focused on. And finally, over the last, I would call it a decade or maybe 12, 13 years, we've really had laser focus on multifamily. And that's been our bread and butter for the last 12 years, as I mentioned. Ironically enough, in multifamily, we've diversified as well. So we don't only focus on market sector or market rate apartments. We focus on affordable. We focus on workforce housing. We will, again, focus on market rate. And we feel that these different sectors that we're focused in, you know, perform differently during different economic cycles, interest rates, capital markets. So that's been our real discipline. As far as the success of projects, in our opinion, in my opinion, and for the company itself, I think what makes a project at the end of the day super successful is how it starts in pre-construction, and having a real strong pre-construction effort. Knowing realistic budgets, knowing realistic schedules, really being transparent with all the stakeholders for us, is what makes a project successful in the long run. And we always say a project that starts strong ends even stronger. So that's been our success story for the projects that we've moved forward.
Okay. And then Austin, any thoughts you may have just really again on that relationship between the development of public infrastructure and this increasing capital flow that we see here in Broward County?
Yeah, I'd say an interesting thing you said was diversification, which our clients now, we have some clients that only specify in certain types of markets, affordable housing, such, and it's allowing them to now look at other markets. So for example, some developers only do these townhomes or condos. Now they're looking at single family in the spec world. They go to townhouses. It's really shifting, as you say, in the markets, right? I'd say 2-3 years ago, it was very heavy multifamily, and it started to shift. Right now, it's into what are little smaller pockets. I do know some of our clients that were trying to hit that over 100 unit threshold. Now they're trying to focus on things that are under 100 unit threshold to kind of have those little pockets of opportunity. And then to piggyback off the public infrastructure, the Bright Line expanding up north is allowing more people to come back and forth into Broward. So it's really just all cohesively coming together. And I think, like you said, as the market shift, the clients are shifting as well. So you're going to see a shift in supply that's coming, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's all going to reach a overall high status, right? So let's say multifamily slows down for a couple of years, and a couple of years will pick back up, and vice versa. It's all going to shift, but Broward's going to benefit from that because while one market slows down, another one picks up, and we're getting the best of both worlds.
Okay. And then Jason, I thought I heard you say earlier that the multi-family development has been constrained a little bit or a lot by some of the capital issues or markets. What are your thoughts again on what's going to open that up, or what we can do, or what is happening that would make that a better scenario for development?
So we've seen a huge emphasis at the state with the Live Local Act of really driving workforce housing. I mean, it's one of the biggest needs in South Florida and definitely in Broward is, we got to be able to support, people and actually have an affordable place to live. And so expediting that process, getting the subsidies or support, whether it's CRA dollars. So that's a huge focus from a driving the multifamily. And those are the few projects that we have seen go are the ones that actually are true workforce housing components or have some component of it, and that have some type of financial support to allow it to go. So we're actually, we're building 2 right now, or actually about to start our second one, but we've been working with affiliated development here in Broward for the last, 8 years on our, I believe on our 7th workforce housing project. So it's something that it's a niche market that's significantly needed that I think is going to help shift the tide. And then beyond that, it's going to be tracking interest rates. Everyone's waiting to see what happens with the new Fed chair and where rates drive towards the end of the year to help give hopefully some relief on the financial side.
Yeah. And Louis, any thoughts on that question around the tie between affordable housing development, workforce development, and the capital markets?
No, I mean, again, I mentioned we that's our emphasis. That's our bread and butter. 85% of our business is multifamily. Again, how we see it, and again, in times where interest rates are high, in times when the land costs is high, the guys that we deal with are focused on doing those P3 and finding those P3 developments. A lot of the light tech deals we're a part of, so on the affordable side. So it seems like when the economy is not doing so hot, these deals become more and more trendy for our developers and more seem to pencil out more often than not. So that's again, that's why we would diversify and kind of see where we can, make help them make those deals work.
Okay. And then, we all have understood over time how the permitting process is relative to development keeps coming up as one of the more consistent friction points between time and development. Any progress? I mean, we know we have Live Local. We've got some other legislation that has been passed to expedite those types of processes. But what other meaningful progress? What does that look like relative to the permitting process and what that does when you've got some expedited processes that makes development more easy to get through? Austin, I'm sorry, I'll ask you that.
I'll start with this one just because we're dealing with it every single day of our life, fighting with these permit people. And I'd hate to fight with them, it's we want to
That's true, I think, right?
guys, let's hash it out after this. We can go to the bar and have a good time. But I mean, it's the reality, right? It's the elephant in the room. Permitting is a challenge, right? Especially for us as well. And it's tough for everybody here because the last thing we want to do is go to our clients and say, hey, it's taking longer, right? We want things out the door. The quicker out the door, the quicker new stuff comes in. It works, right? So what's happening is the Live Local Act has came about, obviously opening the door for some options. There is things going around as private providers, which we have worked with in the past, which really expedite the process, but it's an added financial cost, which is not always the best. And then last but not least, we're starting to hear things about like Plan Check and all these AI programs that we've been recently introduced to, which are still relatively new, right? It's like you're dabbling a bit into it. Can AI really be that missing gap? So it's also a conversation that needs to happen with the cities, right? Every city has their own way of doing things and you want to play nice with them. So I'm excited to see how AI and all these things progress over the years. I do know the cities are getting that pressure from clients and so forth to make things smoother. So I think the end goal is to have a smoother process, but it's with the amount of growth and what's happened over the last couple of years, it's like, how do we get there smoothly, right? Because everyone's running at different speeds. So I don't have the answer today, but I do hope that in the next couple of years, it does get resolved. And I think the implementation of AI/private providers will get there. Some cities do use private providers to help out. So it's getting there. It's just taking some time. So I think it's progressed over the last couple of years. In the last 5 years specifically, you're starting to see improvements, quicker turnaround times, easier access to reviewers. These things help make things go smoother. So I think the effort's there. Just it needs a little more time.
Okay. And then we know that technology on both sides of this development process has been the developer, builders, and the local governments on the other side. Louis, talk to me about how you're using technology in terms of what you do and your practice.
Sure. So we decided to invest in technology a few years back. We actually invested in an entire department led by our CIO. And the idea there was for us not to just bring in software to help, but to really plan out a roadmap of how technology is going to affect our company. There's no doubt that technology allows us to be more visible. The data allows us to make quicker decisions, and it helps with coordination. So it's something that we truly within our company feel that it's super important. Listen, at the end of the day, if construction just by history is always slow to adopt technology, right? We're still, digging holes with machinery and putting brick and mortar up by hand pretty much. But the fact is, if you're not on the leading edge, if you're not taking in technology, you're going to be left behind. Now, we're not looking to be trailblazers. We'll let the Mosses of the world and the Coastals spend all the money and do all the heavy lifting. But we're going to be right behind them in the wagon while they're trailblazing.
We have a phrase, Sidney. We want to be on the leading edge, not the bleeding edge.
Yeah, exactly. We've heard that before.
And again, Jason, to you on this point, talk to us again about how you're using AI and technology to move your processes along.
Yeah. So we actually have a proprietary AI program, Mosaic Internal. And it's funny because you roll it out to a lot of construction guys. Everyone's skeptical. How's this going to help me? What is this going to do? And I think you got to reframe the expectations. So AI is not going to go build the building for you, but AI is probably going to make your back of house processes a lot easier, probably a lot more seamless, have things interact together. Maybe as you're scaling up, and adding multiple projects, you're not going to have as many resources on back of house to support it. So AI is really great in terms of getting the business more efficient. I still think it's in its infancy about what it's going to do when we're going to see robots on a construction job site doing anything.
Yeah.
So we're all optimistic, but we're going to wait that one out.
Okay. Austin, what do you think?
AI is very important. Everyone talks about it, and it's a common question for us, right? Is AI going to take our jobs? Drawing our plans. Hopefully not, because I'll come work for these guys. But if AI is a tool that we use, right? So AI is how we use it as an asset in our company to get things done quicker, more efficient, to find answers to some things that we're working on. So everyone knows ChatGPT. It's pretty common. If you don't, check it out. But there's some other things that we use in our office that can really help the end product get there in a quicker, more efficient manner. So like you said, it's a tool, right? We embrace it. We find ways that how can this help us? We don't run from it. We try to find how can we help. How can this help us get to the final, I guess, the destination? So I guess for those that are skeptical, try to think of it as a way to how can we make our workflow better? How can this help us get to the next step?
All right. And then, particularly in the legal industry, artificial intelligence, we're using that as well. And what we're finding is it is accelerating our productivity, but also accelerating the proficiency of our younger associates. I've got a first-year associate who's sitting here today, and she is probably as more capable and proficient as a first-year associate than I would have anticipated a 5-year associate would be, and it's because of the use of AI. A lot of folks are saying, well, it's taking jobs, but really it's allowing us to produce a more accurate and a more expedited, a more functional way of providing client services today, now more than ever. So we do believe that it's here to stay. And so in terms of growing with it, we all should be on board. Let me just ask, and again, Austin, I'll start again with you, but if you had to direct a investor's attention to one project type or a corridor or one emerging opportunity here in Broward over the next half of this decade, what would it be, and tell us why?
I would think you'd look at Broward. Let's zoom out for a second on a macro level. What does Broward have to offer? And I think you start by going out east, right? We have access to the beach. And I think from there, you look from the east to the west. And I think I would direct them as far east as possible. There's only so much land facing the water, and try to focus more on that aspect and work your way from east to west, because that's where the value that we see on our side from all these projects coming in is most expensive. It's expensive to an extent. And then work your way that way. And I think from there, the type of product type is what suits the client or developer, right? Because the condos are very flashy, but that may not be their style, or something a little more low scale. We love the condos, love the apartments, the houses. They're all special, but a beautiful home on the water versus a 20-story building on the beach, they're both special in its own way. So I think, but they all focus on the water, maximizing those views, maximizing the beach, the accessibility, what basically Broward and South Florida have to offer. So that's the important part. South Florida has a unique aspect that we can offer all these amazing amenities from the local landscape. So why not start with the far east with the water and then work your way?
Okay. Jason?
So I'm gonna flip the question a little bit, Sidney, because you have a lot of very intelligent people here, a lot of people that understand investment. That I don't know how much guidance from a contractor is going to help them. But one thing I will say from an investment standpoint, and I think about it from the lens of our company, and we've had massive growth, massive success, and we've seen a lot of investments on the from the project side, but I'd look at it from a business side. And one of the main reasons that Moss is so successful is we're a leadership company that builds buildings. So you look at the idea of investing, the paper can tell you whatever it's going to tell you. You can make a deal work, you can make a deal look great, but if the people that are in the deal are not the kind of people you need to be working with, that's going to make the outcome far more impactful. So you need to have people that are passionate, you know, people that have high energy. So they're going to drive those results. But more importantly, people that are doing something bigger than themselves. And those are the kind of people that have driven Moss to success, is there's got to be a bigger purpose other than just making money. Otherwise, you know, you're a commodity. So success for us and investment is really about people.
Okay. Louis, I'm going to give you the last word.
Awesome. So I'm going to be selfish about it, right? And I'm going to get these investors and I'm going to try to see how we can convince them to try to solve the community's needs. And we're going to have them focus on making housing affordable, right? We're going to focus on making healthcare accessible for everybody. And finally, we're going to focus on senior living where people can age with dignity. So sort of going back to my, you know, our sectors, A&F sectors, that's where I would at least point them in that direction.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.